Hi there. The video you're about to see was pieced together from a few video clips that I found over the last couple of years, really. They all relate to the Sigma lenses that I've spoken about here on so many occasions. Basically, it's the video I didn't get around to making. So, since I now have lots of time on my hands, I'm going to be piecing together what I can from the old footage. I may add a little bit extra at the end. I guess we'll all find that out when we get to the end. So, I hope you enjoy. Please, excuse the fact that there may be a couple of video issues. One section, for instance, was shot with my 25mm f1.7 on my Olympus, and unfortunately that particular lens will tend to pulse if there are background highlights. So if you look for them, you will find them. That's why I don't use that lens for my videos anymore, unless I'm outside and the light is very even. Well, I hope you enjoyed the rest of this presentation. Hi there. Quite a while back, when I was still using an EP2, I purchased a couple of the EXDN Sigma lenses for Micro Four Thirds. I purchased the 19mm f2.8 and the 30mm f2.8. Well, those lenses were very good optically, but they did have some strange issues. They slowed down the old EP2 during startup, and well, I found myself drifting away from them. Finally, I sold them. After I sold them, there was a certain amount of seller's remorse, I guess you could call it. And I decided to collect these lenses again, and this time all three. Now, I'm referring now to the newer versions. These are labeled as art lenses, and they are now, by Sigma time, fairly old lenses. They've been around for a while. They each come with the same lens hood, which means that it's not terribly effective on this 60mm, but is probably perfect for this 19mm. That is one change from the original lenses. The original lenses did not, there were only the 19 and the 30, and only one of them came with a lens hood. The other one did not even have the bayonet mount for a lens hood. I believe it was the 19 did come with a lens hood and the 30 did not, if my memory serves me correct. But that's not the point right now. The point right now is this. My whole reason for getting into Micro Four Thirds originally was the small size. So there you have the entire package, as you can see, quite compact, that now has the, well, maybe not the actual holy trinity of primes, but something that is at least very close. This has a 38mm equivalent, this has a 60mm equivalent, and this has a 120mm equivalent. So they're all a little bit longer than the traditional 35, 50, and 90, but they fall within a reasonable range. They are 2.8 lenses, which is what gives them their compact size. In particular, the 30mm is the most compact. Lens hoods are a bit of a compromise. They all have the same lens hood. This, of course, means it's quite effective on the 19mm, somewhat less effective on the 30, and possibly a little shallow for the 60. Anyhow, that is what the package looks like. All of them, this, the 19, and the 60, easily fit within this bag. And as I demonstrated when I still had the old lenses in the past, I still have room in here for a little Manfrotto Pixie tripod, a an older Olympus flash in here, extra batteries, extra memory cards, and so on. So, compactness was the biggest issue. Now, what do I think of the lenses? Well, I'm not going to try and do a scientific review. I'm not even going to do a terribly thorough review. I just want to talk about the fact that, for me, they have proven to be a good choice. Now, are they flawless? Far from it. Among the issues I have seen with them is, under certain circumstances, you can get rather aggressive color flare. I'll show some examples right here. Now, this color flare seems to be affecting mainly the 19 and the 30 millimeter lenses. I haven't really noticed it with the 60, but I haven't really shot into the sun much with the 60 to actually see it. That's something that you can work around, and that's something that you can actually make use of. The nice thing about the fact that I'm using a mirrorless camera is that I can actually see the impact of this flare before I take the image. And if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I reframe, look for an angle of view that gets me the subject I want without having that flare. Other issues, there is some minor ghosting when shooting basically small light sources in a dark area. Okay, specular highlights can pose a slight problem. I've seen some ghosting similar to what I would see with using a low-cost UV filter on the lens, which will cause that filter flare. Now, I do not have a filter on either one of these lenses, with the exception of the 60. And the only reason why there's one on the 60 is that I find that the 60, I will remove it if I'm working in certain types of lighting, but I usually use it outside. And a small bit of protection. I know, we're not getting into that argument again. I'm not pro UV filters. I just happen to have one on this lens and I've left it there. Of the three lenses, this one seems to be the most sound optically. The 30 is very good. The 19, well, it gives me a 38 millimeter equivalent, which is close enough to that sweet spot at 35 millimeters to make it a really nice walk-around lens. So, folks, you can see some sample images here that I have shot with these lenses. They have no terrible features. There's nothing about them that I think condemns them. I did have rubber bands around the lenses for a while because these smooth focus rings, you can't even tell sometimes if you're moving them. But what I found was that, as is so often the case with focus-by-wire lenses, I find myself relying on the autofocus anyway. So I took the rubber bands off because they were a little bit of an eyesore. I know that's superficial, but hey, you know, it's nice to have your gear look good as well. So, folks, that's about all I have to say right now. As I said, you can see these sample images. These lenses, the average cost when I purchased them was just over $200 Canadian. I think the most I spent for any of them was about $250 Canadian. So they are not expensive lenses. The build quality, some people will say, well, there's a lot of plastic in the build. I think you'll find that that's true of anything but the top professional glass, which costs a tremendous amount more. So I'm not finding them to be particularly plasticky. They are quite solid. They have a nice metal mount. They have, this band here is metal, and the plastics seem to be of high quality. As I said, optically, all three are very sharp. All three can be shot pretty much wide open most of the time. Now, I know there are people that will decry that and say, why would you shoot wide open all the time? And I don't blame you for saying so. But with a micro four thirds camera and an f2.8 lens, I usually have enough depth of field that I can often shoot wide open and not end up with that general muddiness you often get in the fast lenses. Now, I know fast lenses are high quality and expensive, but the point is that shot wide open, very few fast lenses give you nice sharp results. Partially because of the shallow depth of field, partially because it is very difficult to create a lens that is, f1.4 or faster, that is still sharp, pinpoint sharp, wide open. Some companies have managed to do it, but those lenses are all in the $1,000 plus range. Whereas, as I said, all three of these together cost less than $800. Now, someone might say, well, why don't you just get one fast zoom to cover this range, which is possible? And to that I answer, one fast zoom is still a big, heavy lens. This is all I have on the camera. These in the camera bag don't make for a terribly heavy load either. So from the point of view of flexibility, the zoom is obviously better. But from the point of view of I guess you might say the entertainment factor, I find these lenses much better. I find that having to move around to get a shot makes me more creative than standing in one spot and zooming. And I don't swap lenses a lot when I'm outside. I basically pick one of these lenses and I say, okay, this is what I'm using. If I want to change lenses, I might duck into a coffee shop or something and swap lenses. But I try to avoid doing it outside as much as possible because, well, the possibility of dust on the sensor is much higher out in the outdoors. All right, enough rambling. If you want to know technical details about these lenses, I am sure you can find lots of reviews online. Both written reviews and, of course, video reviews here. And remember, these three lenses are also available in Sony E-mount. So for the typical owner of an older Sony in particular, if you have an A6000, now that's still a very capable camera, but if you have an A6000 and these three lenses, you now have a very compact, very capable package. Now it won't have the image stabilization, which of course, that's the neat part about Olympus. The in-body stabilization means it works with these lenses. You'll have no stabilization. However, you will be able to shoot pretty much wide open most of the time. You will be able to shoot at higher shutter speeds as a result. And if you are very careful about your technique, let's face it, it was a long time that people took photographs without image stabilization. So it's not an impossibility. It's just a little more difficult if you're in a hurry. All right. If you enjoyed this video, by all means, give it a like. If you want to see more of my videos, then subscribe to this channel. And as usual, if you think anybody else would like to know a little bit more about these lenses, you better send them somewhere else, because this hasn't really told you much about the lenses, has it? Oh well. What can I say? Bye for now.